There is a specific type of person who earns money, pays bills when things get critical, and genuinely wants a better financial life, but cannot seem to make themselves look at the numbers. They are not lazy. They are not irresponsible. They are an avoider. An avoidance is one of 6 financial personality types I have identified after years of working with beginners just like you. This video breaks down the full avoider pattern, the psychology behind it, the traps it creates, and the exact system that finally gets an avoider moving. If you appreciate this type of content, gently tap that like button. Here we go. All right, let's start with what the avoider pattern actually looks like in real life, because I want you to recognize yourself if this is you. The avoider is not someone who does not care about money. That is actually the opposite of the truth. The avoider thinks about money constantly. They just think about it in the form of dread rather than action. They get a bank notification and swipe it away. They let bills sit unopened a few extra days because opening them feels like bracing for impact. They tell themselves they will sit down and figure it out on the weekend. And then the weekend comes and something always gets in the way. And here's what makes this pattern so frustrating. On the outside, the avoider often looks completely fine. They are showing up to work, taking care of their responsibilities, functioning in every other area of life. The avoidance is mostly invisible, until it is not. And what makes it even harder is that avoidance tends to get worse the longer it goes on. When you haven't looked at your accounts in 2 weeks, opening them feels harder than if you had checked yesterday. When you haven't looked in 2 months, it can feel almost impossible. The gap between you and your finances grows the more distance you put between yourself and the numbers. So by the time an avoider finally sits down to look, they are not just dealing with the financial situation, they are dealing with the shame of having waited so long. That shame is its own barrier, and it is one of the reasons that willpower alone never solves the avoider pattern. You cannot shame someone into a healthy relationship with money, including yourself. That is why the system we are going to cover later in this video is built the way it is. It closes the distance gradually, without requiring you to face everything at once. Now, why does this happen? This is the part that changes everything for people, so I want you to really sit with this. Avoidance is not a personality flaw. It's a stress response. When your brain associates something with pain, overwhelm, or the threat of bad news, it does what it is designed to do. It protects you by steering you away from the trigger. Money became that trigger through lived experience. Maybe you grew up in a household where money was a source of tension or scarcity. Maybe you had a moment in your adult life, a job loss, an unexpected bill, a period where things got really tight, and the way you survived it was by not looking too closely. And now, even when things are more stable, your nervous system still treats the bank app like a threat. So the avoidance is not you being weak. It is your brain doing exactly what it learned to do. The problem is that the coping mechanism that protected you then is now keeping you stuck. So let's talk about the 3 traps that avoidance creates over time, because this is where the financial cost really shows up. The first trap is the late fee cycle. When you are not watching your accounts closely, bills slip through, subscriptions charged that you forgot about, payments go out when the balance is lower than you realized, and those late fees and overdraft charges add up to real money that is leaving your account every single month, money that could be doing something for you instead. The second trap is the frozen savings problem. Avoiders often have no savings buffer, not because they cannot save, but because they never set up a system that saves automatically without requiring them to actively look at their finances every week. The intention is there, but the execution requires the very behavior that feels impossible. And the third trap is compounding delay. Every month that passes without a plan is a month of compound interest working against you on your debt and not working for you in an investment account. The avoider is not behind because they made bad decisions. They are behind because no decision is also a decision, and time does not pause while you get ready. Now I want to put a real number behind that last point because I think it lands differently when you see it. If you are 30 years old and you start investing $100 a month today, by the time you reach 60, you could have significantly more than if you waited just 5 more years to start, because of how compound interest stacks over time. The math does not care about your reasons for waiting. It only responds to time. And for the avoider, this is not said to create panic. It is said to create urgency with compassion, because the cost of avoidance is real, and it compounds the same way interest does. Every month you are not in contact with your money is a month the late fees keep coming, the savings buffer stays at 0, and the gap between where you are and where you want to be quietly gets a little wider. The The good news is that the reverse is also true. The moment you start, even with one small action, the direction changes. Quick break. If you are watching this and nodding because this sounds like you, the very next thing I want you to do is take the free financial personality quiz at investingforbeginners.co. It takes about 3 minutes, it's completely free, and it tells you exactly which of the 6 types you are, along with a personalized plan for where to start. The link is in the description and pinned in the comments below. Now let's get into the system, because naming the pattern is only useful if it leads somewhere. The avoider's breakthrough does not come from willpower or from suddenly deciding to love budgeting. It comes from removing decisions from the equation entirely. The goal is to build a financial system that runs in the background, one that does not require you to feel motivated or emotionally ready before it works. Here is what that looks like in practice. The first move is to set up one automatic transfer on payday. Not a budget, not a full financial overhaul, just one transfer. You decide on an amount that feels safe, even if it's small, and you automate it to move from your checking account to a separate savings account the same day your paycheck hits. That money moves before you see it, before you spend it, before you have to make a decision about it. This is the single most powerful move an avoider can make, because it creates forward progress without requiring you to engage with the feelings that avoidance is protecting you from. The system runs even when you are not ready to look. From there, the second piece of the avoider system is what I call the one-number method. Instead of tracking every line item in your budget, which for an avoider is an almost guaranteed path back to avoidance, you identify one number that tells you whether you are okay this week. That number is your checking account floor. You decide that as long as your checking account stays above a number that feels safe to you, you do not need to panic. You do not need to audit everything. You just check the floor number once a week and move on. This makes staying financially aware feel manageable instead of overwhelming, and manageable is what creates consistency. The third piece is the monthly 15-minute money date. Not a deep dive, not a full budget review, just 15 minutes where you open your accounts, note what came in, note what went out, and acknowledge one thing you did right. The avoider system is built on the smallest possible actions that still create forward motion, because the goal is not perfection, it is contact. Regular low-pressure contact with your money is what slowly rewires the association your brain has built between finances and threat. And here is what that rewiring actually looks like over time, because I want you to have a realistic picture of what to expect. The first month you do the 15-minute money date, it's going to feel uncomfortable. You might check the clock 3 times. You might close your laptop before the 15 minutes is fully up. That is completely normal. The second month, it gets a little easier, not because the numbers are better necessarily, but because the act of looking is no longer brand new. By month 3, something shifts. The anxiety does not disappear entirely, but it shrinks. You have proven to yourself, with actual evidence, that looking at your money does not destroy you. That evidence is what changes the pattern. Not a budget, not a financial overhaul, just consistent low-stakes contact, repeated until your brain learns a new story about what it means to look at your finances. Here is what I want you to take away from this video. You are not behind because you are broken. You are behind because you have been using a coping mechanism that made sense at some point, and no one gave you a gentler on-ramp into your own finances. The avoider system is that on-ramp. One automatic transfer, one floor number, 15 minutes a month. That is it. Start there, and everything else becomes possible from that foundation.